Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei was the biblical god successor? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. It was a calm and normal night for most people in the world, but at one house in the town of Kuo, a raging fire had for the most part finally died down, though this was no ordinary reason for a fire to be set. Issei Haidu laid there in what once was his home shivering as the cold wind blew across his naked body, his layers of muscle, adipose and viscera, laid bare from the angel's attack, and no matter how much he wished it weren't so, death was no longer a far-off scenario like he had hoped. He could just barely smell burnt flesh, but that was fading to the back of his mind as he looked back at what happened and wished he had noticed the signs before it was too late. He just prayed his parents would forgive him on what happened tonight as he realized now that he should have never trusted the two that always had to promise their harmlessness and in hindsight should have sent danger signals to his brain but never did. Now his carelessness cost both his parents' lives, his own, and possibly his girlfriend's. He considered himself a failure due to his tendencies. He had grown up hoping to help others, but had instead wasted them peeping on video game girls. While he was friends with the perverted duo Mitsuda and Motohoma, he wasn't as bad as them, but did consider himself a self-admitted pervert. He did think though that some of that possibly came from his insecurities around women and companionship, plus an excuse for his lack of charity, but he could be wrong. He prayed to anyone willing to listen for another chance to help others out, and he would make sure he did it right this time, and help those that had been trapped not by the allure of sin itself, but the allure of the companionship and partaking of it. As he was thinking this, his vision started fading to the blackness of nothingness, and he figured he was finally passing on. What he wasn't expecting to happen though was soon as his vision faded to black, it seemed like a door opened in front of him, and he fell towards a bright light in the distance. As he reached the light, he realized he was now in a sea of light that looked somewhere between finite and the infinite as he landed on a marble walkway that he happily noticed stayed firm underneath him as he took a step. He had the feeling somehow of being in an elevator that was in a building with 1 trillion stories and 1 billion basements, and he was stuck on the ride as he looked around and noticed it seemed to also fall into nothingness below him, and he realized there was someone else in the area not that far from him. Having nothing else to do in this situation, he started moving towards her. Issei got a better look at her the closer he got before she turned around. She had long clear blonde hair blowing in a non-existent breeze, the strands of it like reflections of sunlight on a lake surface, glimmering in white brilliance. She was wearing modest white robes made of cotton that were tied into an ancient European style and swayed along with her hair. "So, you finally awakened me. It's so good to finally get to meet you," she said as she turned around. She had well-worn hands and a soft wrinkled face, while her voice, Issei noted, had a soft tone that reminded him of his grandmother's. "It's been so long since I had to leave this world, so long since I was killed by my son and his allies, so long since my heart shattered as I pierced my firstborn's chest," she said as she turned towards him, noticing the confused look in his eyes. "I imagine you have many questions, one of them being where exactly we are. We are in your soul, your purified soul to be exact." Issei was now more confused than ever and a little scared. "What do you mean by my soul? Who are you?" he asked, his voice getting higher with the questions, not sure what to think about what he had just heard. Not surprised by his reaction, she replied. "Why, my dear child, I am the biblical God written about in the Bible. You have what is one of my creations known as a sacred gear within you that holds my soul named Gottheit. Sacred gears were created to help humans fight the supernatural world and are given to random human beings and are passed on when the wielder dies, but only one contains my soul. We are in your soul, Issei Haidu, because you have been chosen as my successor. You will need to unite heaven and also guide humanity away from the coming age of annihilation, which I believe fully you can do. You did hope for a chance to help others, did you not, if given a second chance?" she asked her new successor. Issei wasn't sure what to think, partially at least since she was right. This was his dream to be able to help others if given a second chance in life, literally answered. He just didn't know how to respond to it. He figured most people would be in the exact same shoes as he was if they were face to face with a literal biblical God, and she lets you know you're her successor and literal second coming of Christ. He may not know how to answer, but he sure as heaven would try his best to do her proud. "I don't know what to say. He started before choking and having to take a breath and quieting for a moment. "This is too much to process. This is an honor for me to be given this second chance in life. I will be sure to take this unexpected mantle with all my strength. Though I'm more worried about the fact I don't know how to guide both heaven and earth forward, but you can bet I'll try. I'll do everything I can to help people. I will love and support those who reside within this world and also treat them with compassion and kindness and help lead those that are astray like I was back. Well, I don't know what I'll do. What are your thoughts?" How was it even that someone like me even got selected? He got going and seemed like he wasn't going to stop anytime, so she stepped in, stopping him mid-sentence. Whoa ho ho. You don't need to worry about the confirmation of my choice in you being my successor and is incapable of being changed as it is. I cannot tell you how to do this, as you will need to learn how to do that on your own, but I support you completely with my whole power, literally. She said, hugging him as he cried into her, wiping his nose and eyes on her ever-clean robe. I have and always will love you, Issei. You don't have to worry about that. Take my knowledge and abilities and use them to change the world for the better. You will know how to use them thanks to my ability you will receive called the mind, as well as having full knowledge of the supernatural world. Getting a confused look from him. The mind? What's that ability? He asked, confused and still trying to catch up with everything that has happened. Oops, I got too far ahead of myself. Oh well. My power you will have access to is split into 3 fragments, so you won't be overwhelmed by the sheer power of the, and I'm proud to admit this, strongest person of her time. She said before she laughed and corrected herself. Well, tied with Great Red, Office, and Trahixa. However, while you will have most of the mind's power unlocked from the get-go, the body and the soul will be unlocked with time, and when that happens, I will fade to memory, though that time is long away. She said, calming him down with the last bit. I hate to do this to you, but I must go now. Do no worry, we can talk in your dreams, my sweet child, where I will teach you things that I have locked away to only be learned by that method, but for now this is goodbye. So long, Issei, my successor. Goodbye, my child. She said as Issei felt like he was falling once again down the elevator towards the real realm. God though couldn't stop a tear from falling as she saw him fully fade. I have and will always love you as I did all my children. Scene skip. As the world around Issei slowly came back to full focus, he realized he wasn't in his house anymore, as he could feel gravel underneath him and the biting wind. He also couldn't smell the burning wood anymore. As he fully came to his senses, he knew he had reached the bottom of the elevator, the floor called reality. As he got up from the ground, he realized that he was at the park by his house, or he figured his old home now since it burned. He knew that it had burned, just as how he knew the full history of the 3 factions and the supernatural. He also knew the truth behind the biblical figures and fables, though he had no idea what the current state of affairs was in the supernatural world or how to get the information. He also wasn't sure on how to get that information without unfolding his wings and flying to heaven, which could also be risky. He also couldn't stop himself from being amazed at all the new knowledge going around in his head. How do I know all this? Oh right, this would be the mind ability I was told about. This is so weird but so cool at the same time. Issei thought as he got his bearings and tried to decide what to do next. And with this knowledge it should help me save others and realize my dreams. I should probably start by powering up heaven's system of miracles. Then I don't actually know how to do that, but I'm sure I can get some help from one of the seraphs. He thought as he made a plan for the immediate future. He decided to make his way to heaven and take the plunge from there, as most likely a race and religion without their leader would be happy to see their god successor return was one of the better choices for now, but when he spread his 14 wings out to go to heaven, he couldn't help but stop and check them out, which is when he heard a voice nearby cry out in shock. Oh mercy. Whirling around to find who had come across him, he was glad to see a woman wearing a white, green, and gold nun's habit with pure golden hair and blue eyes, and a lot of holy energy. Thank me, it's an angel, and likely a seraph from the power level I can feel from her. Issei thought, sighing in relief. He was still too new to his powers and knowledge to realize he could use it to gain the name for the seraph in front of him, but that was a minor issue here. When asked about it later, Gabriel couldn't answer with what led her to go to Kuo that night past, that she had suddenly felt the strongest urge to head to Kuo while out on her travels, and what she saw there surprised her to no end. Those wings. That power. Mother, is that you? She asked the all-important question, knowing that what she had seen made it all but assured that she was right. While one would think that her calling him mother would be weird in most situations, she knew in this one that it wouldn't be any more than a simple thought in the back of either of their minds. Well, I am her successor since she put her soul into its own sacred gear, so sort of. I'm Issei Haidu, just so you know what to call me, but I would prefer just Issei. He said, rubbing the back of his head, not sure really what to say in this situation, and also hoping he wouldn't offend the seraph. Oh my. Then introductions are in order, I would believe. I'm Gabriel, one of the seraphs of heaven, and the one who used to be in charge of miracles before your predecessor died. I'm sure by now you have met her spirit within your soul and been informed about everything about the supernatural and your miraculous abilities, but I'm going to make an innocent guess that she didn't help you in learning how to run heaven or how to do anything past help people. She said, giggling at the end as she knew how her mother was and getting an awkward laugh from Issei. You hit the nail right on the head, I'm afraid, ha. He said, chuckling awkwardly. I was thinking of heading to heaven to announce my return. Getting a thoughtful nod from Gabriel. Don't worry, I don't blame you on your poorly informed state, as mother was known for her follow your heart philosophies, but that plan of yours does have some flaws in it. She said, glad she had come across him before he did it. That wouldn't go over well until you called out your wings and triangular magic circle to prove you are the biblical God's reincarnation. Then I'm sure all of heaven would be up in celebration, and you would likely be up all night having to forgive everyone who fell just trying to kiss you. I do have a better idea though. How about we do go on up to heaven with you in your regular angelic form until I send away all but the most trustworthy of angels that should know of your return, and I will claim I have taken you as my joker card before the majority to explain your power. So it doesn't possibly leak out that you have returned, as it could have bad repercussions if it gets out, and explain who you really are to the other seraphs. Even though it isn't much of a change, it should be better this way, because who knows what might happen if the devils and fallen angels was all she got out before Issei screamed and shot off towards the church not far from them. Oh no. Rainer. Issei said, screaming while also kicking himself for forgetting his girlfriend during all the chaos. I have to go save her. Can't believe I forgot about her companions taking her away, what with me getting killed and meeting the biblical God and all. Gabriel following behind him in hot pursuit. Who is this Rainer? She asked, not sure what to think about this sudden shift in the boy. She's my girlfriend of about 3 months and supposedly the one that was supposed to kill me, but something happened and now she's the light of my life. Whatever happened caused her comrades to come acting like they were friends of my parents and feign their innocence towards us, which seemed to work on my parents, but they had to keep reapplying it to the two of us before they killed me and my parents and took her with them earlier tonight. He said as they landed outside the dilapidated church on the hill. I love her, Gabriel, and will do anything to protect her. She was born a fallen angel, and I have every intention on forgiving her, as she deserves that to become a true angel, a bastion of hope. While she could understand where he was coming from, she knew if this wasn't handled right it could end in disaster. Issei, please wait, we can't rush. We can't let them realize who I am, I know, and that's why I plan on killing everyone and making sure no one escapes. They'll die and face judgment long before they realize who I am. He said with conviction, getting a resigned nod from the seraph as they rushed the church. With that conviction in mind, Issei crashed the door in and killed the crazed exorcist that was standing guard in the room, distantly hearing Gabriel comment something about freed cell's son or something. As he found what he was looking for and blew away the defiled cross that was blocking the stairway underground and made his way down the stairs, following the energy signatures he had sensed when he first entered the church. He waltzed down into the den like he was a god amongst puny mortals who had pissed him off, which after thinking about it a minute he had to laugh as he was. Once he reached the bottom level of the church, he realized that there was only 2 of the original 3 fallen that had taken his life and his girlfriend away from him, and he realized the trainer likely killed one of them before they knocked her out, as he could see her on the ground near a metal cross that had a young girl that looked around his age hanging from it that he had never seen before. The fallen were surprised to see him alive, knowing they had killed him, but tried to play it off since they were so close to finishing their goal. So, Gabby baby went and revived the little twerp. It doesn't matter anymore, as within 20 seconds I will finish the ritual of pulling this abandoned nun's sacred gear out of her, as well as pulling the power out of your. The fallen never finished his sentence, as both of the fallen and all 100 exorcists with them didn't even last 5 seconds under the combined wrath of his seraph and God incarnate combined, as they called upon 200 spears of light to turn them all into pincushions, or fallen pincushions, and nothing was left of the group as Issei walked up to the girls to check on their state. They're both weak. I'll go ahead and forgive Rainer so she can be reincarnated as an angel if you will handle the pure-hearted nun, as I remember you said something about using cards to revive someone. I remember there was a project underway at the time of my predecessor to make reincarnation cards before she died. You had also mentioned something about me acting as your joker when we head to heaven. He said, trying not to rush his words as he leaned over Rainer, placing his glowing hands onto her before starting to speak rapidly. Babel, missing Gabriel's nod of acceptance. Once she got closer to the nun, Gabriel recognized her to her shock. She had heard about the healing capabilities of Asia and what she had done for the church, as well as her excommunication, but it had never felt right, as they only knew she was excommunicated, not what caused it. While not normally a big deal for someone of her ranking, something in the back of her mind told her there was more to the story than even the seraphs knew. But this is Asia Argento, she began before stopping in shock once more after reading Asia's soul. Oh my. What a pure soul this poor child has. What could have possibly happened to cause her to be excommunicated? Not someone this pure. If this is another scandal like the Holy Sword program, I will make sure Raziel looks deeply into this. No one this pure of heart should have had what happened to her happen, so I will most definitely make her my 2 card. Before pulling out her card deck and the 2 of hearts and putting it onto Asia, watching it sink into her chest. After about 5 minutes both girls had woken up and had asked where they were, and both shocked at what they learned that Rainer was forgiven and Asia reincarnated. Asia for her part was shocked into tears as she hugged Gabriel, who didn't mind these kind of showing of affection, while Rainer went to talk to her boyfriend. "Oh, thank you Lady Gabriel. This is an honor for me, and you have no idea how grateful I am to be able to serve God as one of his angels. Truly a girl like me isn't worthy of such a gift and honor, but I promise to do my best to honor this position," she said, having to stop for breath as she had been speaking non-stop and causing Gabriel to chuckle internally at the nun. Asia had one question she hoped she would get a positive response with. "I hope this isn't rude, but is it possible for me to meet God? I mean, if it isn't, I completely understand, but it has always been a hope of mine," she said before catching Gabriel looking down at her feet with a solemn look on her face. Gabriel for her part decided to pull a little prank, hoping to lighten the mood, and had to look down to keep her face from showing she was joking. "I'm sorry Asia, but it saddens me to say that God passed away back during the Great War, along with the 4 Satans. She has been gone for centuries," she said, shocking Asia. "What? How can this be? I can't take this in, the one I've always looked up to has passed away. What am I to?" she thought before catching the smile that Gabriel had on her face. "What in the world?" Gabriel couldn't help but laugh at what had happened. "Well, God may have died, her successor and the second coming of Christ is right over there. He is the savior you seek, as he is the one that led me here and told me to reincarnate you. Though he has a massive lack of understanding on how to act within a church, he will learn eventually. Also, don't overwhelm him with worship just yet, as he is new to this whole thing and isn't used to it," Gabriel replied, giggling and also making both Asia and Rainer look at Issei in shock before Asia ran up to him crying and thanking him profusely. Rainer was most shocked of all though. "You were the one that forgave me and saved my life, you saved my life," she said, running up and taking Asia's place, hugging and crying into his shoulder. "You risked a war starting out if they learned who you were, and there are fallen out there that would love to start the war back up just to save little old me." "Oh." Issei wasn't too sure what to think or do with the 2 girls hugging and crying all over him, but did hug them back and let them cry, knowing the shock of what they had just learned and been through had to be hitting them hard. "Haha. Of course I did, dummy. You wouldn't have gone as long as you did if you didn't have feelings for me and also disobey your orders to kill me, and I also love you and trust you so much. I may be the second coming of Christ, but that doesn't change your lives that much. Well, it does in some ways, but not that one, my ray of light," he said, laughing as he hugged her and kissed her forehead. "Oh, please stop being such a sappy sap. You'll get me stuck on you with just that much," she said, starting to laugh, thankful for the second chance in life and making Issei look at her questioningly before starting to laugh awkwardly himself before turning to look at Gabriel. "Well, now that that's handled, how about we head to heaven, Gabriel? I think it's time to let the other seraphs and trustworthies know that I have returned or arrived or whatever. You guys know," he said, making everyone laugh as they made the jump to get to heaven. The first floor of heaven was alive with activity as angels moved to and fro doing their business, with the center of the floor holding the 4 Barak-style buildings for the brave saints of the 4 great seraphim, with what suite of cards they were on a fountain out front of the building. Though everyone turned towards the entrance to first floor as a bright light shone, that could only be from one of the seraphs who didn't make the trip to this floor often. Seeing everyone turn towards their group, Gabriel had to chuckle, having expected it, while Asia, Rainer and Issei looked around stunned at the beauty in the crowd. "Oh my, look at the crowd. I'm sorry to have interrupted everyone, but I just wanted to stop by and announce a couple of things that happened while I was out on my travels. I wanted to announce that I found a new joker and my 2 card for my deck, as well as stumbled across a natural-born angel who had been abducted by the fallen angels. I would love for everyone to please give a warm welcome to Isaac Hull, Asia Argento and Rainer and treat them with respect and kindness." She started, but before anyone could comment on Asia, she said one more thing that stopped the comments in their tracks. "Yes, I know about what happened with Asia, and I'm sure many here might be surprised by that name, but she has been wrongfully accused of being a witch, something that Raziel will be doing a thorough investigation into, I can promise you, and as such, she should be treated with the same disposition as any other angel." Gabriel finished, shocking the crowd that had gathered to listen to what had transpired. "I would also like to invite my deck and our trusted colleagues to meet the new arrivals up in 6th heaven," she continued, sending a wink to her queen Griselda, who realized instantly what Gabriel was implying and stepped away to request the people's presence. Her king wanted to meet the new arrivals in 6th heaven. After she said her piece, Gabriel stepped back, signaling that the crowd could step forward and greet the new group, most wanting to get a look at the new joker, since it was rare to find someone that would require that card, as well as the miracle angel, while all of them requested Asia's forgiveness of them calling her a witch, which she was fully willing to give to them. As the crowd finally started to disperse, Gabriel led the group towards an elevator that would lead them to 6th heaven. Scene skip. The group hadn't been in sixth heaven long before the group of angels that Gabriel had requested to meet them there showed up with her brothers in front and behind them, the group of brave saints that were a part of the seraph's decks. "Welcome back, Gabriel. If I may inquire what's so important you had Griselda gather us all here? Is it about your joker, Asia, or the miracle angel?" Her brother Michael asked politely as they came up to the group. Well, he was surprised about Asia. He knew how his sister thought, so figured that there was more to the story that she would get to soon. "Well, it's about Isaac, but he's not actually my joker," she replied, deciding not to do a joke in this situation and just going straight to the point. "He's here due to his relation to us." Having known Gabriel long enough by now to know that she was being serious this time around, when she would normally be trying to make everyone smile or be making a joke, Griselda wasn't sure what to think. Then who is he, my king? Before Issei figured it was as good a time as any and released his 14 wings, illuminating the area in a calming glow for everyone to see that hadn't yet, including Asia and Rainer, who, while they knew what he was, they hadn't seen his wings yet. What? Did he just and golden wings? And with 14 of them, no way. Metatron said as everyone not in the know looked at Issei in shock before bowing down. Issei for his part started to get embarrassed by having people bow down to him, but knew he would have to get used to it at some point. "No. No, please don't bow down to me yet, I don't feel like I deserve it and it is really awkward. I just learned today that I'm Elohim's successor, so I have no need for worship," he said, which got the seraphs that were bowing to stand, but none of the brave saints. "Please stand, as I find your bowing awkward, so please rise," he said, finally getting everyone to rise, muttering apologies and asking for forgiveness. "Forgiveness? I don't think any of you understood what I meant, so I don't hold any of it against you. I should be apologizing myself some due to yelling at everyone. This situation just was more of an awkward situation for everyone, so no harm was done other than a minor annoyance. But we weren't following our Lord and Savior's wishes, so we deserved to be yelled at," Griselda said, still stunned at what had transpired before being cut off by Issei. "You don't deserve to be yelled at, I can promise you. You did what you knew should be done, and I don't blame you for that, it's just I'm not used to it yet and it will take some time for it not to be awkward for me. Why would I punish you for something like that when my predecessor's philosophy was based on forgiveness, especially when it caused nothing more than an annoyance?" he said, getting an understanding nod from the seraphs and a gracious one from the saints. Right after they got that out of the way, the seraphs started bombarding him with questions like, "How did you become God? Have you met God? Do you have all her powers yet? Would you tuck me in at night?" Sariel, who from what he had learned was kind of an odd one. "What are your plans going into the future? Will you take over control of heaven? What are your thoughts on peace between the three factions? Will you hug me goodnight when you tuck me in?" Sariel once again. Issei did his best just to keep up, while Rainer chuckled in the background at what was happening to her boyfriend. She was still shocked beyond belief that her boyfriend was the literal second coming of Christ. "Well, I have spoken with Elohim and she was nice and everything. I don't have all of her powers, she said that I would unlock them over time. I hope to help people and bring peace where I can, and on that note, I'm not against peace between the three factions. I do hope to take over heaven when I have more knowledge of my powers. And yes, Ariel, I'll do all of those things for you. And please call me Issei or Isaac in front of other angels for now," he said, getting a smile from everyone on the floor before they all had a laugh at Sariel's next words besides Metatron, who could only face fault. "Yay. Daddy's gonna tuck me in at night." Metatron was wrong. God came back, so Metatron was wrong. "I was not wrong. I never said that." Metatron tried to defend himself, but his flickering wings gave him away, getting a snicker from some of the group who knew him well. "Oh, okay, I did say that. I'm sorry to say that," he said as he slunk to the back of the group, scuffling his feet as he went. Issei decided he'd talk to the guy later once there was some time, as he turned towards the rest of the seraphs with his next question. "So what do I need to do to run heaven?" he asked before Michael stepped up, since he had been the one running heaven since God had passed away. "This is going to be a long explanation, so I'm sorry in advance," he started, getting a nod from Issei. "You will need to summon your magic circle in the traditional Babylonian format, and has to be so, it can't be Israelitian or Egyptian circle, as they will not do. Nor will Latin or Germanic forms, as the flow of magic is all wrong." Michael continued his very incredibly super, uber, ultra, unendingly long spiel on just how to connect to heaven's system. "This is going to be a long night," Issei thought as he buckled in his brain, determined to help out and take the burden of running heaven from Michael as soon as he could. Scene skip. The next few weeks were busy for Issei, Rainer, and Asia, with Issei learning more on his powers and helping the seraphs out by taking over running some of the system that everyone felt like he could control and planned on moving more over to him as more time passed. He also took some time and got to know all of the brave saints and the other seraphs, and while it was hard for the saints at first, they were able to get used to having him around and just being able to talk casually to the biblical god Successor without worry of somehow causing issues. Asia was able to take lessons from Raphael on controlling her sacred gear and helped out at the hospital when she could, gaining more strength in that regards, as well as taking some defense training with the help of Rainer, as she wanted to be more useful when possible, or if nothing else be able to defend herself if it came to it. When it came to Asia and the rest of the brave saints, well, they were all cordial to her and everything. It took some time for them to get used to having her around, but Giulio Gesualdo, Michael's Joker, warmed up to her the quickest and was able to help her get used to her new strength, as well as getting on good terms with the other brave saints. Griselda, being Gabriel's only saint at the moment, was surprised at what she had learned about Asia, as while she had never known Asia in person, she had heard about her while doing her jobs with the church and had figured in the back of her mind something might have been up with it but never looked into it and was quick to welcome her to the group alongside Giulio. Rainer was also working on learning new techniques to strengthen her magical defenses and attack power while helping Asia with her training. On the note of her excommunication, Gabriel did as promised and had Raziel look deeply into what had happened, as well as testimony given by Asia on what had happened from her perspective. After hearing her testimony, Raziel dug up multiple occasions where this had happened in the past, but had never been tied together to a single person. From what could be determined, a devil was going around that was doing what they could to force nuns to be excommunicated from the church, and which the girls were more than likely a part of his peerage by now, which didn't go over well with anyone. When asked if she remembered what the devil looked like, Asia said that she had done her best to forget that time in her life and couldn't give a description, which, while the seraphs and Issei regretted it, they understood her position and let the question go. Though they did make sure and remove the person that had given the excommunication order, as if nothing else, it shouldn't have been pushed directly to that being done right away, and they couldn't prove that he wasn't helping the devil. Once everything had been taken care of in that regard, Asia had a request of her king, the other seraphs, and Issei. Flashback. After the final debriefing on the issue of Asia's excommunication, she had a final request and stepped forward timidly, hoping that she wouldn't offend anyone with her question. Getting a comforting nod from Issei, she started. "So I hope I'm not stepping out of bounds with my request, but I do have one for the foreseeable future." She started, getting a nod from Gabriel for her to continue. "I know I am a part of your deck, Lady Gabriel, and am forever thankful you gave me a chance, but I was hoping if I could make a request and be able to work directly under Lord Issei as he goes back to Kuo soon." Surprising the group with her request, though no one saw any issue with it. "I know he plans on opening back up the church there, and I feel my heart leading me to go that route if it is okay with you." Gabriel saw no issue with the request, and after looking to the other seraphs and Issei and gauging their reactions and getting a nod of approval from everyone else, she gave her approval. "I do not see any issue with your request, and I hope that you lead a happy life down there, continuing our work and helping Issei with the foreseeable future. Do not be afraid of contacting me if you ever need anything and something has happened where no one else is around that can help or just want to talk, as you are always welcome here," she said, with Asia bowing her head in thanks to her king as the meeting was adjourned. Flashback end. After their training in heaven and Issei doing what he could at the moment to take over control, Issei, Rainer and Asia got ready to move back to Kuo to get the church back up and running, as well as finish high school for the group, but they never could have imagined the issues that were soon to arise within the little town. Meanwhile, Orc Clubroom. In the Orc Clubroom at Kuo Academy, Ria's Gremory was having one of the worst days of her life. Her idiot of a fiancé had just been by to grope her and rub it in her face that she would never be able to win in a rating game against him, and it was made even worse when her brother's queen attacked Akeno and injured her when she tried to attack Riser. After that whole ordeal, she had been told that the marriage had been pushed to the next day. But that final action, she had snapped internally and decided to do something she had hoped to never do. She had planned the place, left notes, and now she was going to act. She had started making plans months ago, finding the perfect place to do it, that sort of thing, but had never hoped she would have to go through with faking her death, but she knew it was the right call. If nothing else, it was for her peerage members, who didn't deserve to be led by Riser. He was an idiot and a bastard who would have broken her over and over till she was a docile plaything for him, and she was pretty certain he'd do the same to Akeno and maybe even Kaneko. Most people would understandably think she hated him, but she didn't, not completely at least. She'd always been decently pure, even for a devil, willing to help anyone and anywhere she could. She treated others with kindness, volunteered, and helped the injured and hopeless, a couple of which were members of her peerage. Most who knew of her considered her one of the kindest and virtuous people in the world, something she felt ironic since she was the sister of the current Lucifer. Her plan was sound. She'd leave some of her hair, one of her dresses burned, and a pile of ash from part of her wings, and she'd leave them at the warehouse on the outskirts of Kuo. No one should disturb her there. Well well, what do we have here? What a cute little devil we have here. You lost or something? A disturbing looking creature said coming out of the shadows, who Riaz realized had to be a stray. I have no time for you. She said, not at all in the mood for another issue to deal with, throwing up all of her signature power of destruction at the stray. That should shut you gug. She said before feeling her chest pierced as the beast used its last strength to kill her. But GT. Prince as it let out as it finally turned to dust from the blast. Oh my, what's with all the commotion around here? I sensed a massive amount of killer oh my. Riaz suddenly heard from off to the side of her, though she couldn't tell who it was due to him being out of her line of sight. Still, the voice did sound somewhat familiar. Issei had suddenly felt powerful killing intent from this area and had come to check it out immediately, only to be shocked at what he saw. Riaz? What happened here? Wait, that pile over there must have been a stray. Let me check your soul, he said as he stepped over to her and was shocked after reading her soul. Wait, you were a devil this whole time, then he realized his mistake. Duh, you are a Grimoire. You're one of the kindest people I've ever met, so I wonder, he said before making a decision and started speaking in Babel, with his hands glowing in a calming light. But Riaz, what she heard coming from Issei seemed both familiar and unfamiliar. Beautiful and flowing, yet harsh and rugged, with a quality that was indescribable without having heard it before. Then the next thing she knew, her whole body hurt. Oh, it hurt as if needles were being pushed into her spinal cord. Then as suddenly as it started, it stopped as well as the light before Riaz faded into unconsciousness. Issei stood up over the now strawberry blonde girl and was pleased that he was able to convert her to an angel. He hadn't been certain if he could do it since she was a devil, but he was glad he was able to. He didn't know what might have happened if she had died. The whole world would have been thrown into chaos from what he had heard about her brother, and he would do his best to keep the peace between factions. He would make sure there was none of that on his watch. At least she was alive. Wait. I made her an angel. What the heck was I thinking? This is worse, as the devils will see me as possibly taking advantage of her. He said as he realized what he had just done. Now she's gonna hate me and might get up and attack me or try and restart the war, he started saying as Riaz woke up and stopped his worries. Issei, I don't hate you, why would I? You actually saved me from a worse fate than death. She said, finally waking up and recognizing Issei from school, though she was still a little unsteady on her feet. You're my hero, as I was planning on faking my death before the stray killed me, but now you've saved me, and now I don't have to deal with Rizer. She said before catching the confused look on Issei's face. I'll come back to that. Getting a nod of acceptance. And by the fact you were able to convert me. Yeah, that sounds right to an angel, that means you must be God. Well yes, but that fact needs to stay secret as everyone thinks that I'm dead and needs to stay that way for now for the three factions to find peace. He said before he had to ask a question. Though I have to ask, are you not mad I'm taking you from your family? My parents and brother have forsaken me to Rizer Phoenix, who is the most egotistical jerk in all of hell. Ouch. For God, I'm no longer a devil, but I was originally planning on running away anyways, so you didn't change my plans too much, and if I'm being honest with you, if I had known this path may be an option I would have seriously considered it. She calmed down his fears with her response. Though I have to ask why the higher-ups think you're dead. The original biblical God passed away during the Great War and I was made her successor when I got a sacred gear with her soul inside it. He replied, shocking her as it was new news. It's a long story, well it is and it isn't, mainly just an odd and awkward one involving fake girlfriends who were supposed to kill me and didn't and betrayed their side to stay with me. Tilda Sheriffam and a run-in with the biblical God herself. I'll explain it all later as I don't feel like diving into it now, and we should probably head out to the remodeled church before your peerage comes by and tries to find you, which could either be awkward or potentially dangerous. He suggested, getting a nod from Riaz as they left the warehouse. Riaz though had a request to make of Issei after he mentioned her peerage. Issei, if I may make a request. Can you reincarnate my peerage too? I would love if they could stay with me, and I doubt that they would be willing to be traded to any of the other peerages that currently have spots for them, or if they will want to have anything more to do with my family. She asked timidly, hoping she wasn't stepping out of bounds. Issei was the biblical God, or at least her successor after all, but he only turned towards her with a smile. We'll talk about it tomorrow, I promise you that much. But for now, we should get you somewhere where you can lay down for a bit, as it's a much harder transition than you think. He promised her with her nodding her head in acceptance as they headed off to the recently remodeled and reconstructed church. Around 9 hours after the situation at the warehouse, Issei and Riaz could be seen talking together as they formalized plans and figured things out while cleaning up the newly renovated church, which still had dust settling occasionally from the work done. So what should we do now? Riaz asked Issei as they cleaned. She was shocked to learn the boy from school she had known of, but not ever had the chance to talk to, was the literal biblical God now, thanks to his sacred gear, and while she would have possibly been skeptical at first, rightfully so since she was a pure-blooded devil before the events the night before, it was kind of hard to be when he was able to turn her into a full angel. She had also heard about him supposedly dying in the fire at his home, but she now knew that it wasn't an accidental fire or anything. Well, one thing that might be a good idea is for you to change your name, he said, giving it some thought before coming up with an idea. How about Arissa Argento, as it wouldn't be impossible since I have a nun named Asia Argento working for me here who is also an angel, and you look kinda like her, especially with your new hair and eye color. Plus it's also an anagram for Arias and sounds like it. He suggested, getting a nod from her as she liked the name. I like that name and one I can get behind. And it would help if I accidentally answer to Riaz till I get used to no longer going by that name, and explains why I'm here, she said, liking the new name, and then continued the conversation they had started last night. However, I would like to reincarnate my old peerage as angels if you're willing. They were my closest friends and I'm afraid that they'll be labeled as strays within a week if they don't find a new master, which I highly doubt they will, as anyone looking are people that they won't even consider. As I said last night, if any of them are willing to be reincarnated, I will, as I won't do it without consent unless it's a life or death or a limited time situation, he said, reiterating what he had already told her once. He still was worried about. After their little talk, Arissa and Issei finished cleaning up the room, and once it was spotless, they met up with the rest of the group that had come to get the church back up and running with the plot, including 3 main buildings for each of the major sects of the Christian religion. The group, besides the angels, consisted of 3 nuns in their comfortable habits and a priest in more casual business attire. Not long after that, Issei, Rainer, Arissa, and Asia headed off towards the Orc to meet with her old peerage members. At the minimum, they planned on telling them the truth about what had actually happened, but also hoping to bring them to the church. So you're Riaz, huh? I was shocked to learn that the Grimory heiress was turned into an angel, especially since you're related to the current Lucifer. I'm sorry though that you weren't given a choice in the matter, which is quite unfortunate, Rainer said somberly as they made their way down the road. Thank you, but while it wasn't by choice, I would have taken this method if it had been offered. My brother cut any connections to me when he defended Riser and helped attack my queen. She may not have been killed, but our relationship certainly was, she said, not quite screaming and getting a frown from Rainer and Asia. Anyone that could defend that egotistical, repugnant, womanizing jerk is no family of mine. No, Riaz Grimory died last night in that warehouse. I'm Arissa Argento, an angel and Asia's sister. She finished as they continued their walk, which besides Arissa and Asia talking was quiet as they tried to familiarize themselves with each other to go along with them, supposed to be sisters, with Asia loving the idea when it had been suggested. Eventually, the group made it to the school with just under half an hour till the peerage got there, as it was 11:35. Not long after the angels arrived at the Orc, the doors slammed open with the devils they were expecting rushing in before readying attacks. What are you doing here? Where's Riaz? What have you done? Akeno said, not quite screeching but close. We saw the notes from her. She would never have done such a thing. You kidnapped her. Akeno. Calm down. It's me. And yes, I did try and fake my death and run away, but I got killed by a stray, and Riaz shouted to calm her queen down before being interrupted. What do you mean you were killed? Kaneko asked, not quite buying the story as her voice darkened. As I was saying before I was interrupted, I was killed by a stray, but this man here saved me by, well, just look, Riaz replied, sighing, as while she knew it might come to this, she hoped it would go a lot smoother. She spread out her 6 wings for all to see, stunning the devils into silence. They would have claimed she was lying, but angels never lied unless it was to keep someone else from a terrible fate. What? But how? Riaz Akeno cried out, completely flabbergasted. Now that she had a moment to think, she did vaguely recognize Riaz's voice and one of the other people she only thought she recognized from school. Issei decided to step in to try and help calm the situation down, though wasn't sure if it would or not. I'll just go ahead and get this over with. I'm literally the god of the Bible, or at least her successor, since she died in the Great War, and I was given a sacred gear with her soul inside it, he said as he spread his 14 wings and revealed his golden halo above his head for all to see, and shocking the devils into a near mental breakdown. Their former master was now an angel. Okay, definitely weird. The kid they knew through school was the biblical god Successor. Fine, that's really surprising. The original biblical god had died during the Great War. Definitely a shock, but nothing they couldn't handle. What they couldn't handle was all of it coming in at once, with Akeno breaking down into a stuttering mess, and Kaneko's eyes were wide and her hair raised. Kiba though had the worst reaction as he just stared at Issei and had only one question, one that Riaz wasn't surprised came from him. Why? Issei for his part was confused by the question and the dark tone the boy had. I'm sorry but I don't understand your question. Why everything? Why did you allow the Holy Sword project to go through? What did it accomplish? Why did you make all of us go through that hellhole and then just for them to kill us? Why didn't you save me when I was on my knees crying for you to just end my suffering? He said as he fell to the ground. Could you have not made me a boy and saved me from that fate? He finished shocking those that didn't know besides Rias who had heard the story from Kiba himself. Akeno and Kaneko knew something had happened to Kiba in the past but never heard the full story. Issei was shocked to learn that Kiba had been a part of that accursed project. The Seraphim had tried to explain what had happened when he asked about it because he remembered hearing Gabriel mention it in passing at the church, but he hadn't lasted very long before having the feeling of needing to throw up just from what he had heard happen to the lucky participants. The ones that lasted more than a week he knew little of as a result. Wow. I don't know how best to say this without it possibly coming out badly and not hurt you less, I really mean that, but I swear to you that I've only been God a couple of months. I can't even begin to guess why they did that project the way they did, but at this moment Issei's mind screeched to a halt, catching a fact that had been overlooked at first. Wait, did you just say you're a girl? Well, you didn't say it, but implied it, so wow, kind of ironic when you consider all the girls at school want to be with you, oh my me. I got so sidetracked. I'm sorry about that. I must have just come across as extremely rude. Please accept my apologies. He requested before bowing to a completely red Kiba. No. You don't have to apologize as I went off on you for something I shouldn't have, especially since you said you were God's successor and hadn't been in the position for long. I'm in the wrong here so please accept my apologies. Kiba replied bowing as her blush reached critical mass levels of redness. So there were two traps in this peerage, Kaneko said to herself though Asia turned towards her with a quizzical expression. Two traps? She asked tilting her head in confusion and making Rainer giggle. Haha. Traps are people that dress up as the opposite gender to fool others. Think of cross-dressers but most of the time worse. She said laughing at the look on Asia's face at the reply. Having noticed she recognized the one named Akeno's aura she hoped to play a little trick on her. That would mean if I had to guess the Halfolin over there is the other trap. She said making most of Ria's group face fault at her words. I am most definitely a girl. The one she's talking about is Gasper who's locked in his room. And how did you know I was a fallen angel? My name's Akeno so you don't say that I'm a Halfolin again. Besides the fact that I can sense Barakiel on you, I was a fallen myself before I was saved by the lovable lug over there. She said giggling at the last bit as she pointed to Issei. Akeno for her part tried to make some sort of comeback to Rainer, but finally admitted defeat and started talking to herself. What are we supposed to do now? sSuccessors can't see us or Rias. It's Arissa Argento now Akeno. Arissa calmly corrected her queen. sSuccessors can't see us or Arissa when he comes in an hour and a half. I assume you have a plan if you came to see us. She asked getting a nod from Issei. It was requested of me by Arissa that I reincarnate you and I said I would only if. We accept. Please. Akeno said not even letting him finish his sentence. If I go this route I can hopefully prove myself with something that he could never do. I'll take up his mantle and succeed where he couldn't. Whoa there. I understand that you want to do it but what about everyone else? Issei said not sure what to think about Akeno's outburst as he turned towards the rest of the group. He was stunned at how fast she agreed to joining them all things considered, but if what he had heard from Rias was accurate, which he hadn't had any reason to doubt it outside of him not having any knowledge himself on it, he knew that well they would have choices on what would happen to them with their old peerage king dead. She had a feeling they wouldn't take any of the options that were given. Sure I will accept the offer Issei, Kiba said still blushing up a storm, but not as bright anymore. I agree with Kiba and I accept your offer. Kaneko replied thinking, with this I can hopefully make my own reputation where I'm not compared to my sister. Nodding his head at the group, he stood up to get started. Then if everyone is ready we should go ahead and start the process, but stopped at Asia's question. What should we do with this Gasper person Isaac? She asked politely getting him to remember the last person in the peerage. Oops we should go ahead and get his answer to our request. And just so everyone knows, Isaac is a code name I go by so everyone in heaven can't find anything out about me and possibly use it against me in a long-term damage spell which can be nasty things, but only if they have some sort of soul fragment from the target. He said laughing at the end. So please call me Isaac in public for now. Getting nods of acceptance as Akeno left to get Gasper. Okay Isaac, I'll go and get Gasper, but give me a few minutes to get him from his room. Getting a nod of acceptance from Issei as he turned towards Kiba and Kaneko. While she goes and gets him let's get the two of you done. I'll need to get some of your blood too so I can create a clone to kill and leave as evidence so no one hopefully gets suspicious. He said as he summoned two needles and handed them to the two who pricked their finger before laying down on the ground per Issei's instructions. This will hurt so prepare yourselves. making the two gulp and prepare for the pain that he said would be coming. Even though they had been warned about the pain coming, they still were not prepared for it. It was like having your groin lit on fire by a flamethrower kind of hurt, though it stopped just as quickly as it started. As they both got up, they felt like a weight had been lifted from them and now felt a calm envelope their mind and body. It felt like a 200-ton weight had been lifted from their back and a 350-ton weight from their soul. I feel different. Enlightened maybe. Kaneko said, still mostly monotone, but Arisa could hear the surprise in her voice. I know, right? It definitely is an odd feeling, as it's like a weight was removed suddenly from your shoulder. I believe it's due to the fact our body is now made out of pure light. Arisa said as she went over to them and hugged them close, glad to have by her side once again. Issei just smiled at the group as he finished making the clones of the two and turned around to continue talking until Akeno came back. I went ahead and did your clones and mixed their blood with a heavy devil poison to give a way for them to have died and stop people from hopefully getting too curious. He said as Akeno came back into the room with a boy in a Kuo girl's outfit and a bag over his head. Issei had heard Gasper was a damper from Ria's when they were talking about her peerage and reincarnating them. Hello, Mr. God. I heard you wanted to speak to me. He said, clearly scared about what was going on, but doing his best to not run and hide. Why yes. It's nice to meet you. Please just call me Issei or Isaac with Isaac in public. He replied, trying to use his most kind-sounding voice to calm the boy down. Since the rest of your old peerage has now become angels including Ria's, I would like to ask you if you would like to as well, or at least extend the offer. You're offering to make me an angel. That sounds wonderful, Mr. Issei. And I heard you found Ria's. He said, shocked at what was being offered and glad to hear his king was safe, as he had heard about the notes, as even though he was a Hikikomori, Akeno felt he should know what had happened as it affected him too. That's right, Gasper. He saved me after a stray killed me and he turned me into an angel. And I'm no longer going by Ria's, I'm now Arisa Argento, as the name Ria's Gremory needs to die and stay dead. Arisa said, making him hang his head as he heard what happened as Issei turned towards the two that had just come in. Then let's get you and Akeno done, but first I'll need some blood from the both of you and then lie down on the floor and I'll warn you it will hurt. He warned, summoning needles to give to them to get their blood before they laid down and tried to prepare for the incoming pain. Akeno though seemed to be in more pain than any of the others had been, which Issei figured had to be due to the fact he had to forgive her fallen angel side and undevil her, and it was a double whammy of pain for her and it took her a minute to catch her breath. But once she did, she started to laugh at the new feeling running through her as she spread her wings and did a little backflip in the room, making the group laugh at her, though glad she was happy. She was free from her past and able to move on, and while it was a great feeling for her, it also seemed to melt her hatred for her father and then solidified into a new feeling, confusion. She couldn't figure out why her father would give up a feeling like this for Sin and felt like she never would, so resolved to move on with her life. Gasper was feeling all over his body, trying to get used to the new feeling within him. I feel weird, and it's also weird to me to see our bodies lying on the ground over there. He said, looking over to where Issei had finished with the clones. Well, since they haven't ever been alive, they aren't technically a corpse, but yeah, it seems weird to me too, Issei said as he wiped the magical signatures off of everything and put each into their specific clone bodies to seal the deal. He also laid out a bowl of punch he laced with a strong devil poison to give the people who came to the scene a valid reason why the peerage had died and hopefully keep suspicion from the angels in town. Well, with that out of the way, how about we head on to the church and get everyone settled in for the night? He asked, getting a nod from the group as they left the Orc Club room. Though none of them could have guessed what was to come before the night was done. Not long after the group made its way to the church, the new angels went ahead and went to bed after being shown to their rooms, while the rest of the group stayed awake and talked for a bit about anything and everything, but mainly stuck with talking about what the plan was for the future with the group. Do what they could about helping others and keep an eye out for the group of Fallen that had stolen a few of the Excalibur fragments, something that both Issei and the Seraph thought it was possible they might try and come to Kuo, since until recently, it had had two high-class devils living in it, whose family were both Maus as well as Siskins, which on that note. Issei knew he should let the Seraphim know what had transpired recently and mentioned as much to the group, with them nodding their heads in agreement, and so planned on taking the group to heaven later the next day. Arisa also chose to go ahead and transfer schools to hopefully finish her education without running into someone that might possibly recognize her and cause issues, which caused Issei to comment that he had already planned on that himself and was working on getting him and Asia into one and could do the same for Arisa. Not long after that, the girls dived into talking about various girl things, which led them to realize that Ria's had led a sheltered life for the most part, just like Asia had. And also that most likely if Rainer hadn't been personally blessed to not fall unless through betrayal or premarital sex, she would have had her black wings back, though you could tell she never would have done anything they were talking about as she blushed if you returned fire against her. Right around this time, Issei felt new powerful signatures almost reach the church, but before he could say anything to the group the ones outside knocked on the door. Boom boom boom. Anyone here? We come in peace and just have some questions for you. I'm Mr. Lucifer and I'm just looking for my sister. A voice came from outside, who Issei figured would have to be sSuccessor from what he said and from Arissa's reaction. Oh, God. Please help me out here. She whispered to him, making him chuckle at her words, though he knew this would happen. Sorry Arissa, but not today. He said chuckling as she threw a friendly punch to his shoulder and laughed before Issei went to open the door. Yes, we're here. He said opening the door to see that sSuccessor was there as well as Lord and Lady Phoenix, Riser Phoenix and Graphia. He could also tell one or two of the group seemed to shudder as they stepped into the church. Well hello Lord Lucifer and everyone. What can I do for you this evening? You said something about your sister going missing. My fiancée decided to ditch me and planned to kill herself. Though when we found where she was supposed to be, it reeked of angels so obviously this is some sort of master plan to discredit us and kill the sister of Riser started ranting on, and Issei could tell that both sSuccessor and both of the Phoenix heads were getting annoyed and were about to step in, but he stepped in before sSuccessor could. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yes, I was by there, but by the time I got there it was already too late, and I didn't know anything about what was going on past the fact a stray had killed her, and after I killed the stray I couldn't keep her alive, since I can only heal using light. I'm sorry for your loss sSuccessor, Riser, but there wasn't anything I could do to help. What the hell are you talking about? She's standing right there behind you I'm sure of it. Riser yelled out cutting off Issei as he pointed towards Arissa, who had run and cowered behind Issei at his scathing words. She might be dressed in a nun's outfit, but I know her when I see her. You must be mistaken as I'm not who you think I am. She said trying to keep her voice steady as she peeked around Issei who was doing his best to keep himself between Riser and herself. I'm Arissa Argento and just recently came into town since my sister is here as well. I'm sorry for your loss, but she tried to continue her speech, but Riser cut her off. Shut up I know it's Urias. Now come with me. He roared as he tried to take her by the arm and forcefully teleport them out of the church, but right as they teleported out, he felt a hand latch onto his shoulder and dig in by the irate Issei, who was not going to let this guy just come in and do what he wanted. Issei was pissed. He had been willing to try and work with the group to keep things civil, but Riser wasn't going to let it happen. When Riser tried to teleport out with Arissa, he instantly went to try and stop him, but wasn't fast enough to stop the teleportation of the three of them to what looked like where the ceremony would take place, with many people looking stunned at what had just happened and looking their way. You just made a very bad mistake, Issei said, his voice level, but everyone could feel the power behind his words, including the group of devils who had just teleported back in from the church and had the looks on their faces of pure disgust at Riser. All the people that had been waiting in the place Riser had teleported them to didn't know the full story of what was going on, they knew just from the power coming off the boy that Riser had likely made some sort of blunder, though they didn't know of what kind. You think I care? You filth had the nerve to take my fiancée away from me and try to go along with the fact that she killed herself instead of just doing what I wanted and giving her to me. Hell at this rate there's no telling what I might do to her since she's put me through all of this. Riser kept going on and on about it, making Issei more and more pissed, which made him let out more of his power than he probably should have due to who he was before he finally snapped completely and threw a light spear through Riser's stomach, ending his life instantly and made all the devils flinch. At the intensity of the holy power that was inside of the spear. If anyone had thought about possibly stepping in before Issei killed Riser, the power they felt coming off of him made them decide to stay back and not have it directed towards them. As he faded away Arissa ran up to Issei hugging him and crying, he had one thing left to say before teleporting out. Don't you dare mess with one of my angels. I don't care who you are and I don't want any apologies. Consider this your only warning. I just want to go home so have a good and blessed day. He said making sure everyone in the room heard his voice as he pulled her into a princess carry and teleported the two of them back to the church. Not long after they got back to the church sSuccessor and the Phoenix head and his wife came back and slowly tried to get closer to the still sobbing Arissa and Issei. We're sorry for all of this. We never would have guessed. Just go. This wasn't your fault, it was your son's. And since he's dead, it's all over. Goodbye to you and good life. I hope I don't have to see any of you for at least a year. And I wish you luck on getting over the death of a child as I know how hard it can be. He said cutting off Lord Phoenix, not turning towards the group as he hugged Arissa, letting her cry all she wanted as the group of devils looked stunned at them one last time before slowly teleporting out. Right after they left, Arissa's former peerage members came out as if they were waiting on the devils to leave to see what had happened. Issei, what happened? Is everything alright? Akeno said as she came up to the two. A lot happened, Akeno, a lot happened. He replied as he calmed down from the ordeal that had just occurred and started thinking rationally again. As he comforted Arissa, he signaled to Asia to come closer so he could whisper in her ear instructions, trying not to bother the girl in his arms, as she seemed to have finally calmed down enough to start falling asleep. Contact Gabriel or Griselda if you can't get Gabriel immediately, and let them know what's happened while I help calm Arissa down. Use your discretion on how much you tell them, but let them know we'll be by later, once everyone calms down some for a more in-depth briefing for the Seraphim. They need to know at the minimum that we had an incident with the Mao Lucifer and the Phoenix clan tonight in case they try to contact heaven before we get there. He ordered, getting a nod from Asia as she stepped away to make the call, knowing exactly what he was talking about, and that speed was of the most importance here to keep things from possibly getting out of hand any more than it already was, as Issei moved to take Arissa to her room. Scene skip. Sixth heaven. Having been alerted by Asia about the recent incidents that had occurred in Kuo, Ria's Gremory and her peerage turning into angels, and the incident with the Mao Lucifer, Gabriel was stunned at what had happened and let her know that they would be expecting the group when they arrived. Though she did also mention that they did the right thing in alerting her immediately about the latest issue, and as far as she knew nothing had been said to heaven yet, though that wasn't a surprise since it was still a fresh incident. Immediately after hanging up, she called a meeting to update her siblings on what had occurred, and they were as shocked as she was, though they all felt there was not quite a 50-50 chance of the devils contacting them anytime soon. Hours after the incident, Issei and group teleported into sixth heaven, not wanting to try and come in any other way, and risk having awkward questions come by from where the new angels had come from. Well, there was an elevator between floors, most of the time the higher-ups in the angel faction just teleported between floors, and Issei used that to their advantage in the situation. As they teleported in, they could see there was only one seraph in the meeting hall, also known as the Zebel, at the moment, who turned out to be Gabriel, and as she turned towards the group, Asia bowed down to her king with Arissa and her peerage, looking like they weren't sure if they should do the same. Gabriel for her part just laughed softly at them and beckoned for Asia to rise as she looked towards the newcomers. Please, be at ease everyone, and welcome to heaven. I heard through Asia about you, but not what happened exactly that led to your events as well as what happened earlier last night. If everyone is willing, I will alert my siblings you are here and we can get this meeting underway. She said, smiling at them, and after getting a nod, sent an alert to the rest of the seraph that the group they were waiting on had arrived, and within a couple of minutes, the rest of them were in the meeting room with everyone sitting around a large round table with plenty of space all around, and started the meeting with what had happened to Arissa to start this whole thing off. Well then. I'm truly sorry to hear what has happened to you, and as Issei told you, I wish you had been given the choice of being reincarnated to an angel, but I am glad that you are okay with it. Michael said to Arissa before turning to the rest of the group. And I'm sorry for the rest of you that you were put in this position too, but also glad that you were given a second chance with us, even if we were on different sides recently. Getting smiles from everyone. Thank you, Lord Michael, but as I said, I would have taken this method if I had been offered it, if I had known who Issei was before I went to the steps I did, but I also understand why it would be hidden from everyone that God had died and now has come back within Issei. And thank you everyone for the kind welcome of us, as I'm sure I can speak for my whole group, we've been welcomed with open arms. She replied, making the seraphim happy at her words, as Michael turned back to Issei to continue with the meeting. Well, now that that part is gone over, if no one minds, how about we move on to the next issue that occurred? He said, getting a nod from everyone as Issei dived into what happened with sSuccessor, Graphia, and the Phoenix clan. I'm almost certain now that I think back on it that I let out more power than I should have and might have given away who I really am, Issei said after explaining what happened and surprising everyone. I'm going to hope that how stunned everyone was in the room when I let out my power will help keep the knowledge from getting out, but from the look I saw coming from sSuccessor, it makes me think that he knows. He said, making everyone nod their heads. I can understand why you did what you did and can only hope that the knowledge won't be leaked, but I have a guess that if sSuccessor did realize, he won't spread the knowledge himself, as he knows the same as we do what might happen if it's revealed who you are. Gabriel said, getting a nod from the other seraphs as they contemplated what had happened and what might happen now with this incident with one of the, now deceased, Phoenix siblings. Once the official meeting was over, they talked about some other things that were coming up, and then Issei and group headed back to Kuo. End of the part 1. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.